Hi, everyone, and welcome. I hope that you all had a hot drink or a nice lap animal to keep you cozy during this session. Tonight marks the final event of the year, and this evening we'll be talking about health and longevity for the new year, with a special emphasis on nutrition, cell health, treats, and more. Guest panelists tonight include our very own Julianne Lee, DCH, Billy Hoekman, the Vice President of Nutrition and Communication at Green Juju, Larry and Charly Pruden, owners of Pawdega, and the dog dad, Scott J. Marshall, the mind behind Raw Feeding 101. I'm your host, Steph B. Please check your chat settings and switch them to everyone so that we can all join the conversation. I'll collect questions and Q&A as usual in the Q&A area, and we'll answer a few towards the end of the session. All right, so before we get started tonight, everyone, welcome. Is everyone excited for the holidays, the new year, 2022? Everyone feeling positive?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent.
100%. My Christmas break starts tomorrow, so I'm very excited. So, and it's
Lucky
my daughter and my puppy's first Christmas, so it'll be very exciting.
Oh, that'll be nice.
I expect pictures, man. I expect pictures.
Check Instagram.
Yes.
Instagram. Oh my God.
I'm like, when I scroll through Instagram, I'm just always stopping at the pictures from Huckleberry, and I'm like, how can you be so cute? That's just not like, and then you put Huckleberry and Maple in one picture, and it's like
perfection.
Hey, I agree with you.
Wow.
I'm a lucky guy. I agree.
I'm always texting and going, how do you even work? Like, how's that even humanly possible? I'd just be like rolling on the floor and work. What's that?
Okay, so I want to start the session. As always, this is a casual conversation between friends in the industry. Thank you everyone again for joining us. And to get the event started, I want to know from everyone here, all of our panelists, what are some things that you implement daily that are important for health and longevity? Jay, can I start with you? Or Scott, I'm sorry.
Yep, go for it. So you just want me to go with it? Do you have specific questions or you just want me to roll?
I mean, that is my question. What kind of things are you doing daily
All right.
that are good for health and longevity when it comes to our animals?
You know, there's lots of things that we have implemented over the years, my wife and and I think that one of the more significant ones, and for my wife, one of the most heartbreaking ones, was having to get rid of the Scentsy candle setups in every room in the house. As soon as all that information came out, I was like, babe, they're going. She's like, no, not my Scentsy. So that's had to go. But I think for me, and all of you guys understand the pressures that you get put under sometimes with all this, one of the biggest things that I do is I try to focus on maintaining positive vibes, because I notice without a doubt that if I get stressed out or, you know, frustrated, flustered, anything else, then immediately my dogs start reacting to it. Sometimes to the point where they'll actually physically get up and leave the room. Like if I am stressed out or flustered, 99% of the time they're wanting to hang out with me. If I get mad or frustrated or something, they're gone. They just take off. So it's not very, you know, a hands-on kind of practical physical thing, but that's one of my big things, is trying to just stay level, not get super duper high when things are great or super duper low and things are a little rougher, but just try and stay even so that they stay even with me.
Yeah, totally helpful. And good point about the scented candles and unfortunately the things like that we know and love. You're absolutely right.
It literally broke my wife's heart. You should have seen the look on her face. She was like, you're kidding, right? You're really going to take my Scentsies away? I'm like, yes. And
yeah.
She like gave me this dirty look when she threw them in the trash. I was like, hey, do you love the dogs or not?
That's a good one.
You know what you could do? You know what you should do to surprise her this Christmas is buy her a round natural beeswax candle and an organic peppermint oil. And you just
there you go.
One drop beside the little wick thing and then light it. And she's got her scenty candle, only it's a good scenty candle.
We can call it like Santa's cologne or something like that.
We can call it Scott's back in the good books.
There you go.
Charly and Larry, what are some tools or things that you do daily that are important for the health and longevity of your animal?
I would say 3 things that we do is feeding a fresh food diet. That's one. Then exercising. So we go to the desert almost every day, let her run off leash for quite some time before it gets too hot. So exercising is really important. And I would also say supplementation. So a few areas that we like to focus on is detox, pre and probiotics, and antioxidants. So these are the 3 things that we like to focus on. So exercise, supplementation, and
fresh food.
Fresh food. fresh food is so unthinkable because but it's something that we actually do every day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about saying that one, and that's like my entire life. It's just such a
right?
like a default setting for me. I don't even think about it anymore. Like, well, for health and longevity, we make sure they breathe and they drink water. And
yeah.
Billy, do you have anything to add?
No, yeah, I do. So yeah, it's actually kind of an interesting thing because I'm actually, so, I have a puppy right now and I'm sort of like building his diet and getting into my routines of what I like to feed and how I like to feed it. Because I'm a huge advocate for feeding things that are very easy, that fit into our routine, that I can have on hand, and sort of to do that. And so when I build a dog's diet, I sort of break that down into like everyday items that build up a majority of the calories, everyday items that are more supplemental and contribute, but don't really add a ton of calories. And then whenever items, which is I can feed them whenever I just kind of feel like on there. And I would say, out of that list, the things that are on my, besides the animal product parts, so besides, the whole rabbit I'm feeding, besides, all of the eggs and the animal products are obviously, I'm going to go to, the fresh low carb vegetables, in terms of the company that I work for, in terms of those antioxidants and those fiber, but also a huge fan of fermented vegetables every day as well, especially wild fermented vegetables for all those soil bacteria, to be able to do that. I also, on my very short list of everyday items are, 2 wonderful mushroom tinctures from a company you might have heard of called Adored Beast. So I do like to do that. I would say the number one, it's actually kind of hilarious because I have a dog that just will not eat fermented dairy.
Oh.
It's kind of crazy for me.
Does he know who you are?
I asked him that. That's the funny thing.
The notice or what?
So, but he does like fresh dairy. So one of my raw dairy, of course. So one of the big ace in my hole is I do have access to raw colostrum from local cows here in Pennsylvania, and so every day he gets 4 ounces of raw colostrum, and that's really my, he's a puppy, so that's his liquid immune system. That's his, that's him building that. So I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky to be able to do that. So I don't know. And there's a lot developing. So I'm excited. My thing in the industry and my favorite thing is kind of what's the new thing? How do we push the envelope? So he's my little guinea pig for that. There's a really long answer, but he's my guinea pig is the short answer.
That's perfect. Julie, do you want to put the cherry on top? Do you have anything else to add about things you're doing daily on your farm for the animals that help with health and longevity?
That's a good, that's an interesting question, because I think that with my animals, I have so many that they're all different in a way. You know what I mean? Like everybody's on something different. Everybody's on a different protocol. I wish I had the ability to be with them as much. Like when I'm a little jealous when I hear these guys talk, because there was a time in my life when, other than my patients that I saw every day that I was completely focused on, but you know, when I had only a couple of dogs or a couple of cats, and taking on animals that are really, really highly challenged and have major problems with them when I get them, I would say the number one thing that I try and do across the board, even with the dogs and the cats, is give them freedom. And allow them to live not just a life that I mean, obviously raw food and homeopathic remedies are a major go-to for me, even on a daily basis. But I think I try and allow them to be as free as they possibly can, if that makes sense. Like all the horses, they're not in stalls and then let out. I mean, unless we have bad weather, and then the one horse comes inside. But you know, they have movement, and they can come and go when they want, and they eat when they want, and they have free choice hay out for them all the time. And you know, the same with the cows. They can, you know, sit in a 100-mile windstorm if they want to. And sometimes they do. It freaks the daylights out of me when they do that. Or they can come into their cozy barn. And it's the same with my dogs and my cats. So I let my cats out, and they don't go out at night because we have a lot of owls and stuff, and coyotes and foxes and things. But they go out and they hunt, right? They hunt, and they are, I just let them have their own lives. I try very hard. Like Henry's not neutered, and he's just all over the place. Like I really don't know where he is sometimes, half the time during the day. Well, he's usually right beside me, but I think part of longevity and health for me is feeding an appropriate diet. That's just like with all these guys, it's just the go-to thing. You know, paying attention to trying to get their diet as prey species oriented as possible, but also to really focus on what their lives would be like if they weren't urbanized, right? I'm very, very fortunate and really, really lucky, because I'm not the perfect mom, that's for sure. And you know, when Scott said about stress, like that freaks me right out, because I feel like there's a lot of stress here on a regular basis. With like, there's not usually a day that someone's not really sick, or that we're really not playing with like a life-threatening thing that's going on. And I'm in every one of the animals, I love them so much. So what I try and do is like I said, I try to allow them to live in a space that is as free and supports them to be who they are. So, you know, I don't do a lot of training. I let them sort of be who they are as far as, you know, their personalities and stuff. So I think that's maybe one thing that a lot of people don't pay attention to enough, is if we're focused on food and we're focused on supplements and we're focused on all of that stuff, are we focused enough on letting them be dogs or letting them be cats? You know, so I would say that's a big focus for me, is to try to make sure that they're being animals and they're being allowed to just be what they were born to be.
Anyone else want to add to that before I move to my next question?
Sort of, nowhere near the scale that Julie has, but with our last dog, and Billy knows this story really well, that passed away like about 2.5-ish years ago. When we would sleep at night, we'd always shut them in the bedroom with us, because we didn't want them, you know, like trying to get into the sink or getting into something that was gonna either just make a mess or hurt them or something like that. But for some reason, this time when we got Montu, our newest dog, we never shut any doors anywhere. They do whatever they want all night long, go wherever they want all night long. And he just settled into the house so much faster than Horace did. So maybe that was because of the fact that he had more freedom. Even as a little puppy, he's a total snuggle bug now, probably because we cuddled him so much at night when he was a puppy, but he settled in really fast. And maybe part of that was because he had more freedom and could explore the house on his own more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fine line of keeping them safe and letting them be free. Billy, you're going to figure that one out with the two-legged one too.
Everyone is super structured with the small puppy and the baby. We're all very super structured. So, but that'll change at some point.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Charly, did I see you wanted to add something?
Yeah, it's something that, like what Julie was talking about the freedom. It's something that we try also so hard, and we tell people like it's such an easy stress relief somehow if you can like let your dog run off leash for a little bit. And I know a lot of people cannot do that, unfortunately, but it's something that like we see and with our dog when we go to the desert and we just let her run. There's just, you can literally see like so much freedom and so much like happiness and seeing the stress relief. And I feel like, you know, exercise is so underrated for dogs nowadays. And it's something that we've learned like this year, especially, is that like, I think a lot of people think that raw feeding is kind of maybe the only or main thing that we should all do to keep our dogs healthy, but and to have our dogs live long. But there's just when you start with the raw feeding, you just keep seeing new things, and you know, everything that's been mentioned now. It's like it's so important to also focus on and exercise as something free, and like it's so major and it's such a major part in longevity. So yeah.
Good point. Speaking of exercise and the upcoming holidays, I'm gonna ask Scott, could you start with some options for our pets during the holidays when it comes to nutrition? And what I mean by that is things that it would be okay for them to eat, like while we're preparing our own foods, and are there some things that we could also treat them with that provide nutrition, and or even to touch on things that maybe they shouldn't be having that are around during the holidays?
So one thing that I try to do is, and this is just for fun, really. I mean, of course, there's nutrition in it, but whatever holiday it happens to be, I try and feed them the same proteins that we happen to be eating. So if it's, you know, if it's Thanksgiving, we're feeding the dogs turkey. If it's Christmas, because my wife makes ham every year, honey glazed ham for Christmas, they're eating pork. You know, rabbit for Easter. And I've even before, and this was years ago, I mean, like right as soon as I got started back in like or at least started raw feeding 101 in 2017, you know, feed duck heads on Halloween. So, you know, just having fun with it that way, I think is a fun way to include them in the holidays. But two more practical things, I guess I would say, would be to, if you're going to travel with your dogs, or if you're going to be leaving your dogs or your cats or whoever it is with someone else while you travel for the holidays, don't put your plan together last minute. Because, you know, we've got a Facebook group with almost 67,000 people, and every year it seems like we have posts like, hey, I'm leaving on a trip tomorrow. What should I do for my dogs while I'm away? Like, should have made a plan a week ago, but here's what I do now with the 24 hours you have left. So have a good plan, whether it's make the meals ahead of time and leave detailed instructions for what to feed at what times, what amounts of the supplements that need to be given at the time of feeding, the ones that you can add to the food before the time of feeding, do so. Or even if you are a total DIY person, buy some pre-mates just for the time that you're going to be away. Because again, if your dogs are on DIY raw, unless there's some kind of weird situation, because I've seen just about every weird situation there is to see with food with dogs at this point, then they'll be fine on pre-mates for a week or 3 days or however long it's going to be. The other thing that I thought about, because I did write a few thoughts down just that I'd have some idea of where I wanted to go. But one thing that I see is people getting carried away with the holidays. Like if you want to give your dog some mashed potatoes or something like that, like you let them lick the spoon off the mashed potatoes or something, then go for it. Just don't let the fun of the holiday season get away from you and you start giving your dog little bits of everything, and before you know it, you've given them like an entire day's worth of calories of not so great for them but super tasty food, and your Christmas Eve, your Christmas, your Thanksgiving, whatever it is, ends up with you picking up a mess, whatever kind of mess it happens to be with your dog. So try and feed proteins that are, aligned with whatever season it happens to be. If you're going to be leaving town for some kind of holiday, or you're going to be bringing them with you, have a plan ahead of time so that your dogs don't end up suffering from your lack of preparedness there. And have some fun, give them some turkey or whatever it happens to be, but don't get carried away, because you giving your dog that whatever thing that they don't like, or their body doesn't like rather, isn't worth them having the upset tummy or you cleaning up the mess in the hallway at 3 a.m. on Christmas. So those are my main points.
Yeah. Scott, that's a great point. I think that's a lot of fun too, to feed a protein that is similar to what you're feeding. Like you said, pork if you're feeding pork, or if you're eating pork, or that's a great idea. And also, if you don't mind, would you, if it's not private, would you mind dropping your Facebook group in the chat for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I see a bunch of members in the chat already over there.
Oh, excellent. Great. We love that. We're a tight-knit community. So when it comes to the holidays, Pawdega, what kind of things can you talk about when it comes to nutrition, or lack thereof, things we should avoid that are included in our meals?
Avoid cooked bones.
Thank you.
I think that's like one of the biggest ones. Cooked bones, like fat trimmings. I also wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't feed anything with bread, stuffing. I don't even really I don't feed potato either. Gravy, like anything that's like processed, basically. Like if I'm going to share something like a piece of raw meat that maybe I would be cooking, or like some raw veggies or raw fruits. Yeah.
Basically
like
preparing ahead of time.
Like I wouldn't feed the leftovers. I would I guess feed the when we're preparing something.
Before overs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would like put something aside maybe for them, and or for my dog. And something that that I really love doing is feeding from a flat surface. So like having a platter, or something where they can just see the food and like grab what they want. So doing self-selection as well, if that's possible. Yeah. What about you?
No, I mean, for me, I think one of the biggest things are cooked bones, because I just went to my mom's house for Thanksgiving. Excuse me. We were at my mom's house for Thanksgiving, and there's a little dog around. My sister, she has a dog, and they come to the house, and they give the dog this and that, and sometimes it's like it burns my eyes, and I'm like I can't believe what's happening. But sometimes it's a good way to remember, some of the things that you do see. So I think cooked bones is definitely one of the biggest things. I think a lot of people don't really think about that can actually be harmful to a dog. So that's what I would probably say. I would probably say as well, like once you've cut up all of the meat for yourselves and your family, and you want to do something with that bone, you can make bone broth out of it. Like it's a great way to utilize that piece of the body. Yeah, and there's tons of bone broth recipes online.
Yeah, I'll post ours. I'll put it in the blog. We've got one on our blog.
Yeah.
Billy, what's any nutritious things that you guys have going on for the holidays that Huckleberry's also going to partake in?
Yeah, so we I brought him over for a second. Now he's headbutting me.
Believe me.
We were talking about boundaries and he was barking at me in the kitchen. So, here we are. So it's funny because when it came to Lua, over the years, a lot of times I would try to be like, okay, I'm going to make you like super special meals for Christmas. But then I was kind of like, you always get super special meals, because it's like you always eat, in my opinion, better than any mammal, that exists really. So, I this year, for him specifically, he really loves seafood. So he's, it's a part of what he eats. He loves whole fish. He loves that kind of thing. So I did buy him some caviar at Whole Foods, which he'll be partaking in because he's bougie. And also
only Billy Hoekman's dog is eating caviar.
Yeah.
So that and some whole sardines and things like that. And so, we'll do some special things like that. But I just think my gift to him all year is to try and get, give his cells the best chance at, and part of the things we're talking about is, cellular health and maintaining that. And so my gift for the year is to just kind of, to do that for him. But aside from that, for me, it's all about just spending time. So, I have like a week off. So it's all about, getting to do more stuff with him, getting to do more kind of family stuff. Cause, we're introducing him, and some people out there might be in a similar situation, to a baby and to our family as a unit. And my big philosophy is, when it comes to bringing a dog into the family, is how do you introduce the dog into being a part of what you guys normally do, right? Being a part of your family and your routine. And so my gift to him is going to be that. Aside from, we also bought him, we went to the store to buy him like a chew, and of course we bought like a whole box of everything. So he does have, it's kind of hilarious because I'm saying like, well, we don't really do anything, but then we bought him, like, he has presents to unwrap and he's eating caviar. But aside from those things, he's a regular dog, that gets to live a regular dog life. So
caviar flex.
Yes, exactly. So but yeah, so we're just excited to have him as part of the family. And I did get a question. I do appreciate it when looking at the comments, people saying he's cute, etc. And I did get a question about why I picked him or a French bulldog, I guess, after having a pug. And I will say that this guy here was a gift from a friend, which was very nice. And he's actually a third generation raw fed dog. So that was important to me.
Awesome.
He was completely naturally, everything that has happened to him in his life has been natural. And so that was really important to me. So that's why I picked this guy right here. So, right.
Perfect.
Am I the only one that only heard like half of what Billy said because I was too busy looking at Huckleberry?
True.
Pretty much.
I got the caviar part.
The
Julie,
ultimate raw feeding flex right there.
Yeah. Julie, anything that you're doing during the holidays when it comes to nutrition for your pets? Do you share meals with them? Do they get a little extra something?
Oh yeah, they do. I think sort of what Scott was saying too. If we're doing, I'm a vegetarian, but if we do turkey or we do something like that, then we'll cut off the wings prior to cooking them and sort of put them to the side so that they can have turkey wings at the same time. They do get some little tiny bits of mashed potatoes, things like that, but not like Scott said, nothing that's so out of the ordinary that they wind up getting sick. But I think the like treats, like different kinds of dog treats that have more of a festive, cranberries, things like that. So, but what I was going to say is, when you're talking about being careful, I think at my vet clinic, I I saw a lot of dogs that would get into the garbage, and it's just because people are busy and you're not watching them and you don't know where they are, and there's a whole bunch of people running around in the house, and there's kids opening up doors and then not closing doors, or I think pancreatitis with like leftover gravy and fat drippings and cooked fat drippings. I saw a lot of pancreatitis over Christmas. And the other thing too, don't forget that with stuffing, lots of people want to share stuffing, but onions are really poisonous for dogs. So we have to be really super careful about even the smallest amount if they have the genetic makeup that it doesn't fit with them. It can be quite dangerous. So we want to definitely watch the cooked bones and anything that's got chocolate or onions in it. And yeah, for my dogs don't normally get a lot of treats. They don't do a lot of treats. And so for Christmas they get lots of treats. And I think, are we putting something about treats tonight, right? We're going to be talking about treats.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about treats.
Yeah, that's something special too that can happen. And when I was growing up and on a farm, our dogs and our cats, in every holiday, my mom would always take out the turkey necks and what she would call like the gizzards and all the things that were like stuck inside. And then they would go in a big bowl and get all chopped up for our dogs and cats. So if your dog doesn't normally get, or your cat doesn't normally get things like organ meats, like gizzards and livers and things like that sometimes can be extra special for them as well.
For sure.
Can I jump in real quick on the one point on that that I think was important? I typically just about the pancreatitis thing, because I really, think it's one of these things that has a lot of misconceptions, which is because the root cause of it is exactly what you said around the holidays, but it's not really it's the root cause of why it happens around the holidays, but it's not the root cause of the actual problem, which is high carbohydrate diets. So the misconception is that fat causes pancreatitis. Now, pancreatitis can happen to any dog eating any food, really. But it commonly happens, and the newer research and the better research actually shows now that it happens because of the fact that dogs are on a high carbohydrate diet for their entire life, and they're constantly stressing their pancreas. And then all of a sudden on the holidays, they get this big load of fat, and then they get thrown into pancreatitis. Now, the vet would then say like, well, it's because of the fat. Well, it was sort of because of the fat, but it was actually because of the underlying problem of eating a high carbohydrate diet. So I think it's a really important distinction to make, because people need to know that, because then they get scared away from appropriate diets, which are, higher in fat and protein and lower in carbohydrates. And so you don't want to be scared of fat. Fat is one of the most important, it's as important as protein in terms of nutrient content. And so I think it's important that people understand that, you are actually, when you feed those high carbohydrate diets, stressing your dog's or your cat's pancreas every single day.
For sure. I think for me with fats, it was always cooked fats too, right? So like grease and a lot of dogs that we saw were on dry, right? So a lot of dry kibble fed dogs that have gotten into the garbage, and we're not talking like, they just get a little tiny bit of fat on something. We're talking them licking the bottom of a pan that a turkey was in, right? And then and never have been on a raw food diet, so they don't have the digestive enzymes or the bacteria to even handle anything like that. And like you said, their pancreas is already stretched to the max for what they're already on, so it just sort of tips them over the scale. But it just smells so good to them that they'll eat the tin foil with it, right? So they'll just like get into the garbage, and then trying to get into the drippings and things like that, they wind up ingesting tin foil or it's a busy time to watch. I've seen dogs get into, sounds gross, but get into suet, right? Like, you know, the bird fat, the raw bird fat that you put out for wild birds. And people freak out thinking they're going to get pancreatitis, and they don't.
Suet is like the healthiest fat on the animal. I mean, that's like,
yeah.
And by the way,
never seems to bother them. It's when it's cooked. And I wonder if it if it changes possibly changes the mechanics even. Do you think it does? Do you think that cooked fat is different than raw fat?
Sure.
I do, yeah, and
yeah,
absolutely. And I will say, just side note, turkey drippings is actually Scott's main dietary item. So just throwing that out there for his own diet. So
absolutely, that's the only thing that I eat these days. Very, very strict. It's really easy to do around Thanksgiving, but sourcing that much turkey throughout the rest of the year gets expensive. So I have to do lots of odd jobs, all kinds of stuff. I actually also have something to add to what Julie was saying about the dogs getting into the trash, because we now have a locking trash can because that has happened to us. It wasn't on a holiday, but I can't remember what it was that we made. And this is at the time a dog that was, I don't know, he was somewhere between 8 and 9 years old. He's 11 and a half now, but so he's, you know, a totally adult dog, totally set in his ways, and has never, ever once, even though he's always had the opportunity, never even had a slight inkling towards wanting to get into the trash. Just wasn't his thing. And then one day he just went for it and ripped out. It was something that was tinfoil. I think it was, I don't know, but it had tinfoil in it, and he ripped out every single one, cleaned every single one of them completely off. And I walked into the room and was just like, is this really happening? Did Wolken really get into the trash? Why did he do this now? So now it's just like a kind of a safeguard that we've put into place, where it's a habit that if you walk away from the trash can, it's shut and the top is locked, so that even if you walk away to go to the bathroom or suddenly get a phone call or whatever it is, the dogs aren't getting into the trash unless they knock the thing over and shatter it into pieces, which, I mean, Wolken's big enough, he probably could if he was motivated enough, but he'd be found out long before that happened. So consider locking trash cans. They can be a literal lifesaver.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good tip, and something that's easy to implement as well.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that dogs dogs can eat a lot of garbage and be fine, right? Like they're built to eat things that are decomposing and you know, roadkill and things like that. But roadkill doesn't come along with elastic bands and, you know, cardboard and tinfoil and all of the lovely
blue paint
or the things that come off your bread, those little hooky things, and like it's just this the stuff you pull out of when you do surgery, you pull out of their guts when they've gone and gotten into garbage is just kind of crazy.
And you know what? Maybe I can just add to this, because we did just come back from America, and I didn't grow up in America. I grew up in Germany, and cooking with plastic or with like all this tin foil and stuff is very foreign in Germany. We don't do this. So it's something that this time around, it actually, because now we understand so much more about like, you know, plastic and nutrition and BPA and toxins found in the things that we put our food and water in. And, you know, we make sure in our house that we don't just use any type of, what's it called? The bottles that we drink from, like
stainless steel.
And yeah, any type of stainless steel, like it has to be kitchen grade and things like that, right? So something that I noticed was how much is actually being cooked inside of these aluminum pans. And then also things like microwaving inside of like plastic or like, you know, just things like that, where maybe it would also be a great time to, I know the holidays are really stressful and nobody really wants to clean so much, maybe, but you know, just maybe having in mind on that as well, that there are some toxins found in you know, the way that we prepare food as well. It's not just about how we feed ourselves or our dogs, but also how the food is prepared as well. So yeah, I think there can be a lot of toxins eliminated when we look at that way too.
Yeah, not to mention waste.
Waste. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Definitely.
So my next
think about
question-
how much
sorry.
aluminum is thrown away every year the day after Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Tons.
Probably literally hundreds of tons, if not thousands of tons.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about cell health and how we can support healthy cells in our pets. Who wants to take the lead on this one?
I can, I guess.
I was gonna pick you if no one spoke up.
Well, I think I don't think cells get enough credit. You know, we kind of compartmentalize our bodies, like our animals and ourselves, and we look at our joints and we look at our guts and we look at our brain and we look at all the different parts, and every single part has cells in it. So our cells are in every single part of our parts. There's nothing that is void of cells. And I think, you know, there's trillions of cells in our dogs and our cats and in ourselves. And I think it's vital to understand that our cells are very responsible for maintaining our homeostasis. So within that concept, we have to remember that in order to keep our cells healthy, we want to maintain their integrity, that they can die properly. So we think a lot about keeping cells like vibrant and longevity and health, and part of that is the understanding that we have to have natural cell death. And when we don't have natural cell death is when our bodies run into problems, right? So not our cells not dying enough, we run into things like cancer and autoimmune disease. Our cells dying too quickly, then we run in sort of to like degenerative situations. So it's imperative that our cells maintain their integrity to properly reproduce and die. And when we look at that, everything so far that we've talked about, everything, whether we're thinking about cell health or not, contributes to cell health. So exercising, fresh air, love, good nutrition, that all contributes to cell health. I think the one place that we lack in cell health is in our minerals. So when our soils are so depleted that our food doesn't have the minerals that it needs to have, and our I think the lack of minerals creates the integrity of the cell membranes to be weakened. So we really want to try and maintain. It's the only time where I feel like, unless you know, when we talk to, like when Billy and I talk a lot about soil health, I think if we're really conscious of where our food's coming from, and it's come from like maybe a no-till situation for lengths of time where the minerals have gotten back into the soil, I think we do need to look at minerals for health and longevity and cell health outside of just our normal food. So you know, are the animals that our animals are eating, are they eating, you know, on grass grass where the soil from that grass doesn't have a lot of depletion in it. So if we don't know that, and if we're not fortunate enough to be sure that that's happening, and to be really honest, in this climate, I don't know, even the best of us in our best intentions, if those animals are still getting enough minerals. So, things like fulvic and humic acid, and things like for me, my four favorite ways of getting minerals into animals is like sea, soil, and fungus are the three main things that I look at. So fulvic and humic acid from the soil, or just plain old soil, like Billy's been talking about for a long time, and I've always talked about, let your dogs get dirty and get into the dirt and things like that. So soil with fulvic acid, humic acid, soil-based probiotics, things like phytoplankton, that if you make sure that the phytoplankton's coming from a mercury-free situation. So phytoplankton is very similar actually to soil, only it's from the sea. It holds very similar advantages of chelation therapy, drawing out not only feeding minerals but drawing out toxins, and fulvic and humic acid and phytoplankton help the integrity of the matrix, the outside of the cell wall, so that toxins can't get into the cells. So that's really important. And then medicinal mushrooms have their own sort of, if grown in the correct environment. So not mushrooms that have been grown in sterile situations and things like that, but mushrooms that have been wildcrafted or grown in soil from a forest bacteria, metabolize minerals in a very different way. So I think if you're looking at the combination of getting proper soil minerals into them, proper marine minerals into them, and proper fungi minerals into them, I think you can do a world of good when it comes to things like cancer, autoimmune diseases, and degenerative, like not living to their full life expectancies, just even from degenerative processes. So that's my my go-tos when it comes to really looking at things we can add to help with cell health.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Julie. Okay. Does anyone else want to add?
I actually want to ask.
Yeah. You go first. You go first, sir.
So, Julie, if you were for the average person, because we, like you were saying, in this climate, lots of people do and don't have access or have funds for certain things. If there was one thing that just about anybody could do to improve cell health and optimal life length of those cells, what would that one thing be?
If it was an additive, like, we're not talking about exercise and fresh air and all that, right? We're talking about an additive, are we?
Even if it's that, if there's that one thing that just about anybody could do, if it is exercise, if it time outside, sunlight, fresh air, whatever it happens to be.
Well, exercise and breathing, like air, like oxygen, like nobody, people or animals don't get the oxygen that they need unless they exercise, or unless they are actually breathing deeper. I mean, if you do Wim Hof and things like that, Wim Hof is like you're going out and you're exercising. So I think that if you don't, I always say, what do I say? It's soil. No, help me out, Steph. Sea, soil, air, and love.
Soil, yeah.
Air and love. So a lot of those are free. So love is free, air is free, and exercise is free. So those are three main components that anybody can do. it costs nothing. If you can't afford raw, if you can't afford supplements, if you can't afford those things. But I've heard a lot about, I mean, that's a really hard call for me to answer. If you're looking at one thing, my company is based on rotation, right? So I don't think that there's a one fix for all. So I think if someone was, if funds are limited and you were looking at, I'm just going to use my things as an example, my products for examples, but they don't have to be my products, but something that would mimic that. If you're doing, when I developed Phytos Flora, it was a species oriented probiotics just for dogs, right? So it's the only real science-based probiotic for dogs. And I put fulvic and humic acid in it because I said, if there was one thing that people could do for their animal, the fulvic and humic acid helps to chelate. So it helps to deal with all the toxins that every dog is dealing with right now. And it's feeding them a pre and probiotic, right? That a diverse strain of prebiotic and a strain that is unique to their species. But then for me, it would be like do one jar of that and then go to phytosynergy, right? So phytoplankton. So you're giving superoxide dismutase, you're giving lots and lots of sea minerals. Because if you think about it, I always find this really fascinating. And Billy and I've had this conversation before. Anything that's growing on the ground right now, anything originated, like if we really look into ancient nutrition, like if we really want to go backwards, this was all water at some point. So when we look at what something like phytoplankton gives to the cells, it's a single cell amoeba. It's a cell within itself. It's not fractionized. There's nothing been taken out of it or removed. It's an entire thing within its own right. So it's like this little amoeba that can live as an entity within its own being. So when you look at that, you're giving the original minerals that would have been on the planet to begin with. So, and then I go from that to that and then to a mushroom, because fungi was here probably at the same time or before anything. So I try to get people to rotate and not get stuck in one thing, using one thing all the time. And then it gives the body, I truly believe that everybody on the planet has an innate intelligence to heal. I think we can heal from anything. I honestly, truly believe that, given the right tools. So if you can give the body something, those three things, it will know where to place it. So it doesn't have to be like this cup is for cancer and this cup is for Cushing's, or this Lipsil is for Cushing's and this is for that. If you give the body what it needs, it will take it to where it needs to go. If it's got the right, components to do that. So I know that was a very long answer to what's the one best thing. But if I had to choose all of them, if I had to choose one thing of all those things that I would say love. Over raw food, over everything. That's what I would say.
Golf clap. Golf clap.
My favorite part about that was Scott was like, what's one thing you can do? And then you're talking about amoebas.
Yeah.
You're like, let's simplify this down to amoebas. Side note. I would like to put, I guess, a slightly different slant on that.
You always do. That's why we get along.
So one thing, to keep in mind is that, your dog or cat is more bacteria cells than they are themselves cells, just like we are. So one of the things to keep in mind for cellular health is to feed those cells, to constantly be feeding, not only probiotics, but those prebiotics. So getting, that right type of fiber, getting that diversity of different types of plants to feed that microbiome. but also getting that diversity of, you know, probiotics and bacteria just in general. I know for me, for both, you know, pretty much my whole family, we are, you know, I take a probiotic, but I also eat a lot of fermented foods and, you know, drink a lot of raw dairy, and that kind of stuff. And I do the same thing for Huckleberry as well, you know, and it's the same thing I did for Lua. So I'll throw the probiotic that I take, I'll throw that into his food. But also that, you know, there's also raw coconut yogurt. There's also, you know, the fermented green Juju that we do. There's also, you know, fermented vegetables that I might make at home and that kind of thing. And so, you know, that's another thing to think about as well when it comes to cellular health. And that's going to affect the cells, I think, of your dog or cat as well, because we know that a lot of disease and a lot of degeneration starts in the gut. And so obviously people know my go-to is, you know, bacteria and that kind of thing. But so that's how I kind of look at it.
It's and it's not really a different slant. I mean, bacteria and probiotics is what Adored Beast was founded on, right? But I think that you're right. Like without the proper gut bacteria, it won't matter what you eat or take. You won't be able to produce the metabolites to create it anyways, right? So even the metabolites to produce the postbiotic. A lot of people don't talk about postbiotics, right? Postbiotics are the effect of pre and probiotics in the end result. Mm-hmm. So you're 100% right. Without the bacteria, you won't get the postbiotic effect, which is the way the bacteria metabolizes, or the metabolites that are created from the bacteria that even allow you to get vitamins, minerals in anything. So it's the foundation. You're right, 100%.
All right, I've got one more question, gang, unless anyone else has something they want to add. Oh, Charly, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one thing. I mean, everything you guys said was amazing. And, you know, one thing that I just want to add is that we speak with a lot of people directly. Like we do events over here and we'll talk about like a lot of important pet health topics. And, you know, for example, pancreatitis is also something we talk a lot about because we see so many cases here now, and cell health as well. And a lot of times people will say to us, well, this sounds really great. I'll get in touch once my dog is sick or once my dog, you know, is getting older. And that always breaks my heart so much because like we really don't have to wait until there are signs of, you know, cell health declining or health declining. And it's so much harder when we wait until that point where a disease is starting or symptoms are starting to show up. And I hope that, you know, maybe we can all start this new year with trying to implement a more proactive approach to everything. Yeah, because it's just so important. Like it's where we don't have to wait until our dog is 3 years, 5 years, 10 years old to start prioritizing something like cell health, for example.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. I mean, we've been in this for so long that like you're 100% right. Because my practice was full. My first 5 years of practice, all I saw was end stage stuff. If you can't help my dog, I'm going to be euthanizing it. My cat's gone through radiation, this, that, and that. If you can't do something, there's no other hope. It was always like every animal that walked through my door was, you know, I was like the fifth clinic that they went to, and there was like no other hope, right? And I think that's what's so amazing, though. I think we really are starting to look at that. You know, so many people have had dogs that have had cancer, or so many people have had animals with skin disease that they're starting off with, like Billy's dog, you know, raw food fed, like, you know, grown on raw food diets. And so many people are going like, I don't want my dog to suffer through a skin disease. He had to wear a cone for 8 years of his life, or anything like that. So I think that's a really good point, is, you know, even if your dog isn't sick, you know, that's the time to try and prevent, because cell health is all about that, right? Is trying to derail diseases and not try to fix them once they're broken.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because I would say that at least, and it's probably more, I'm just trying to be conservative, that at least 1 out of 8 people that sign up for either meal plans or our boot camp program, 1 out of 8 of them are doing it because they just lost a dog to cancer and they never want to feed the kibble or do anything like that again. And they're taking a more proactive approach and not waiting, like Charly's talking about.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for all you guys, right? Like, I mean, so that, I mean, a long time ago, people didn't have anybody to reach out to know that there's even a different way, or to feel supported, because their gut sense says, well, I don't eat anything out of a bag, or I don't eat commercial based food, but I'm told that this is what my animal's supposed to be eating. You know, there wasn't the resources that we have now for people that are looking at, you know, prevention and stuff.
No, when I started, you were asking questions for a year in a Facebook group, and that was about it. That's all you could do. There was no, I mean, there were some books, but it was definitely not the same environment that it is today, where not only is there someone to answer just about every question that you have, but there's 15 or 20 of them to answer every question that you have.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it was a great thing.
Yeah, it's nice to have a community to lean on when we need questions answered. Lastly, this evening, my question is your favorite treats. I think Pawdega has a recipe or some DIY treats. And I also think that Billy probably is going to want to talk about treats for some reason.
Billy prefers Wonder Bread. That's his favorite training treat.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. You know, Green Juju makes wonderful treats based on organ content. So they're made of primarily heart and liver. And then we break down different antioxidant color types. So red, green, orange, and blue. And we add, those foods as well. So we can, so you get the number one thing in nature, which is organ meat, just generally with all of the, as an accent with those antioxidant colors. So those are available all year round. So no reason to just wait until the holidays, especially, if you're over there in Dubai, they're now available. But also, I'm a huge advocate of feeding foods that you feed yourself as treats. My current dog is still trying to figure out my last dog's, I should say my dog, who unfortunately passed away, Huckleberry is Maple's dog. So my dog used to love blueberries, and especially blueberries with raw cream. That was her favorite snack, because that's what my wife would eat. Huckleberry's still figuring out what to do with blueberries. I think he thinks they're a toy and just kind of like plays with them.
Really small ball.
Yeah, and then crushes them into the ground. But when it comes to treats, and I consider treats not just to be treats where, oh, you did something good, so I'm giving you a treat. But if we're cooking in the kitchen, and like Larry and Charly do, I'm sort of like a purist like you. If we're making chili, I'm going to give them some of the ground, raw meat. I'm going to give them some of the vegetables I'm cutting up. I'm going to do that and have him and that's, a treat that feeds that, not the training aspect, but it feeds that. And this is something I talk about a lot, which I think some people might think is corny, but I just think it makes so much sense to me. I'm feeding that innate desire that dogs have that brought us together in the first place. So dogs started following humans for food. And so one of the things that I think is just so cool is we can see how happy different breeds become because of the fact that we're giving them what they were bred to do. So, you know, you have like ratting competitions where people are taking their dogs to barns and they get to sniff out certain things, or, you know, hunting dogs, but every dog has the innate desire to share foods with humans. And that's like tens of thousands of years worth of evolution in that thing. And so I just take, I know a lot of people say like, I don't want my dog to beg, but I love it. I think it's when your dog looks up at you and you give them that piece of food, that's just, you know, 100,000 years of love between humans and dogs. And so when it comes to treats, why not do that a little extra during the holiday? I just try to keep it high fat, protein, and low carb, you know, if we're doing peppers and things like that. But for your training, for all of your like in the pocket needs, green Juju freeze dried treats are 100%. And you guys need to show your dog more. You keep kind of just showing her a little bit in the frame up there, but
this
we need
is actually not our dog.
This
Oh.
is a friend's dog. He's very needy.
He's staying with us.
He looks
over
very
the holiday.
sleepy.
Yes, it's all French bulldogs all the time, apparently.
He's acting right now because he's the most hyper French bulldog I've ever seen.
Yeah.
No, but sorry.
I just want to tell Billy that I'm so happy that he said that, what you just said about sharing food, because I get poo-pooed a lot because I don't believe in fasting, and I only believe in fasting if the entire family fasts.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm a big one about if you want to fast your dog, that's awesome. Then go out and eat in a restaurant. Don't fast your dog and then sit down to a table and eat your dinner or cook food or whatever. Like dogs fast in the wild if they can't eat, if they don't get to food or they haven't killed something, but it's not by choice that they're fasting. It's because that's what they're, most of the time the whole pack is fasting. So I would always say to people, if you want to fast your dog, but then don't cook food and don't, because I don't think that that's when we're so close to our animals, like so close to our animals. And then all of a sudden one day out of 7 days, they're not eating, but everybody else is. I've never felt like that is I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me to do that. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense to fast them, but I don't believe it makes sense to fast them and the rest of their pack is eating.
So I can't eat Oreos and fast my dog? Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Too bad. Sorry, Charly, what were you going to say?
No, that's a really good point. It's Wow.
Well, Sue Armstrong and I would talk about them because, like, when they smell, their digestive system is already starting to work. Their smell is so heightened that if people are cooking, their bodies are ready to eat. The dogs I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're in this space where they should be cooking, because I have seen a couple of dogs gain weight on hardcore fasts, and I talked to Sue once about it, and I'm like, how can that possibly be? And she said, because they're storing their fat, because they're still smelling it, right? They're still smelling it. They're still in that
preparing for the next famine.
Yeah, they're in that assumption they're going to eat with the rest of their family, and then they don't. It's not a particularly healthy thing for them to go through, even though everybody's got the right intentions. It doesn't really make sense if you're really looking at your dog as being part of your pack or your family.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
We intermittent fast our dogs, but it's not on purpose. It just happens to be that there's about a 16-hour window that they don't eat and an 8-hour window that they do eat. It's not like we sat down one day and said, all right, we're going to feed it this time and this time. So there's a 16-hour and an 8-hour window. It's just how our lives worked out with everybody's schedules. And yeah, I agree with Billy also. If I ever cut up meat in our house and I don't give the dog some, I am like public enemy number one forever.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Anything else? Anyone have a takeaway to share?
Charly,
I actually wanted to say something about the treats. Treats, it's one of the easiest things that you can also make for yourself. Well, not well, you can make treats for yourself, but by yourself at home. So, and whatever meat or fruit or vegetable you can think of that's healthy for a dog, you can air dry it. You can dry it, dehydrate it in your oven at a very low temperature. We do have a video on YouTube that shows you how easy it actually is to make treats by yourself. So you can do organ meats, you can do whole meats, slice it up, and then cut them up, or you don't even have to cut them up, however you wish to feed it. But it's an easy, cheap way to give your dog great nutrition.
Yeah. And we've done the DIY treats for years now, and it's like when we go to the desert and Milka runs off leash, she's not always a good girl. But these DIY treats, they've been working very well. Like even with other dogs, they just love the treats. But I have to say, sometimes it's good to switch it up. So we were realizing that like they weren't working as good anymore, maybe. So when we were looking for treats to bring to Pawdega, actually, something that we were looking for is truly wild caught, truly, grass-fed, free range, organic veggies and stuff like that. And what we found was that there are some brands, this is another topic for another time, but it was really hard to actually find brands that are, really good quality and that don't just say something on the front of the label. Like we saw something that said, for example, something like free range and then a little R on the top, which like, it doesn't mean that it's actually free range. They've just trademarked the name. Exactly. So, just crazy stuff like that. So now obviously we brought green Juju in to Pawdega, which we're super excited about. And salmon is Milka's favorite. So she finally, like, it's sometimes, because there's actually free range camels around here, around this area where we take her to. So sometimes she's a hunter. She's a French bulldog, but she has that in her somehow to hunt camels. So
that's an image, a French bulldog chasing a camel through the desert.
Honestly, it's an image you'd never ever want to see in real life. But yeah, so it's always worked great with the homemade treats, but I have noticed that since we've been mixing it up with the green Juju as well, it's worked very awesome. And yeah, we're really excited to be treating Milka to that. And something for the holidays, honestly, what I see with Milka is she loves to lick. So licking relieves stress for them as well, right? Stress for them. Oh, I just heard my. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So the licking, actually, like what Billy was saying earlier, if you can do like a raw milk or something like that and put it on a licky mat or a like plate or something like that, I feel like this helps Milka so much relieve stress, and it's also a great holiday treat as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say the same thing you guys did about DIY treats and using the free time that you have, hopefully that you all have during the holiday season, to take the time to do that thing you've never done before. If you've never done your own DIY treats, it can be fun. You take a beef roast and turn it into a real long time's worth of training treats or reward treats, or get away from the camel treats or whatever they happen to be, and just spend that time connecting with your dog and spending time with your dog. Because we never know how long we've got, and when we have the time where we're not super busy because we actually have some free time because the holidays, spend that time, do it with them, have them right there when you're cutting up the meat and throwing them little pieces every now and then, make them do little tricks, whatever. But yeah, DIY. Do that. It's fun. It really is. And you can get a dehydrator these days for like, I mean, yeah, $15, $20 sometimes, especially now when they have all kinds of sales going on. So it's not an expensive venture either, and it can lead into other things.
For sure.
So true.
To go back to the love, I feel like the animals know when you put the time in to prepare it as well.
Yeah, they do, for sure.
My dogs definitely know, because they sit there and watch me do it for hours at a time.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Pawdega, I know it's 5 a.m. there, so thank you for making it happen. Julie, I know it's after 10 where you're at. Billy and Scott, I think you guys are on the same time zone as me. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your knowledge, for being open. It's always nice to hang out with all of you. And for everyone that attended, thank you, and wishing you the best for the holiday and a happy 2022. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Thank you.